Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of A Cup of Joe. My name is Joe Escobedo, and with me on the show today is Lauren Stephenson, who is the VP of Global Marketing at Shootsta. Thanks so much for being on the show, Lauren.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Well, yeah, we're very excited because you're going to be talking about a topic which I think is close to every marketer's heart, which is marketing and sales alignment. You know, I've been in a lot of organizations, and there's always a gap. Doesn't matter what you do. So I'd love to hear kind of what you guys are doing to bridge that gap between marketing and sales, particularly from three different categories. The first of which is pricing. So how do you kind of make sure that you guys are working together in pricing? The second is obviously content and messaging, making sure that everything's aligned there. And the third is how do you kind of bridge the gap with training and education? And then lastly, we'll talk about something you guys have already developed called the Shootsta Show, which I've been fortunate to be part of. But we'll save that to the very end. Let's talk about kind of your experience with marketing and sales alignment, particularly in the new organization.
Sure. Yeah, I for me, it's definitely been a theme throughout my entire career, especially working in B2B marketing. You're always working with the sales team. Sometimes, you're frenemies, or sometimes you're really aligned. I would have to say at Shootsta, it's been a really great experience because I joined in January this year. And at the time, we had a fairly big sales team that was global across 5 different countries. And there wasn't really a very established marketing strategy or team.
Yeah.
So it was a great opportunity for us to sort of kick things off and start, I guess, a new chapter. But then COVID happened 2 months later. So, but I have to say that actually has accelerated the alignment between sales and marketing, which might sound a little bit strange. I think for maybe some companies, it might have actually torn some teams apart as they're just like scrambling to figure out how do we change, how do we pivot, how do we, evolve what we're currently selling or how we currently sell. So at Shootsta, it was very much traditionally sales, let's go to face-to-face events, and marketing would support in that way, more as pure support function. However, since then, we've really started to sit down and exchange. So it's very much a dialogue between the sales and marketing team. The first step that I took when I joined Shootsta was, what does the marketing team actually look like? Since we didn't have one. And that was to have field marketers on the ground in each market to sit with the sales team. So not have, marketing team sitting somewhere else, or perhaps, not just location wise, but also within the organization, not being close, not having regular meetings, catch ups, and following, I guess, the same KPIs, the same revenue targets. Because I think that is key to the alignment as well. It's not just what are we actually selling, but are we all are we seeing it as one single team as opposed to 2 teams going after 2 different goals and objectives?
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. I'd love to find out how exactly you're kind of aligning the KPIs. Now, is it that the marketing team has sales and revenue KPIs, or how does that work out?
So sales has their revenue targets, and the way that the marketing team, we work backwards from there. So our goal is, right, we know that the sales team needs to close X value of revenue. We then work out, what is our average deal size. Then we look at our data as in, how many meetings, for example, does it take to actually get to a closed deal, or on average open a deal pipeline at a certain stage. And then we go back one more step again of how many leads do we need to get. Now that is, not an exact science. I don't think many marketing and sales teams have really nailed that. I don't think there's any technology just yet, but that's sort of how we are working together. And I think that's a key strategy to align the sales and marketing team, in that you're looking at the entire sales funnel. I don't like to use sales funnel. I feel like sometimes it's a little bit old now, a little bit old school. but it is at the end of the day a sales process. And you've got people at the very, very top, which is the unaware stage. They don't know who you are, what you even, sometimes they don't even know what their problem is, right through to actually conversion, and then post conversion when they're actually a customer. So particularly for, you know, SaaS style businesses, and you need to retain customers, you need a recurring revenue that continues. So that's where marketing also works with the account management team, for example, or your customer success team.
Mm. Okay, no, that makes sense. I love the idea of working backwards based on a particular revenue target, and then saying, okay, how many meetings, how many leads do we need to get to actually hit that? I think, yes, in theory, I think it's a brilliant idea. I think the challenge is kind of like, you know, even right now, I'm sure your conversion rates have shifted around because, you know, you go from in-person meetings to like online now, and it's you know, as good at it as people are at kind of selling online, it's still kind of a tricky thing to do, I think, for most salespeople who are very much used to the in-person type of selling.
It is. It's been a big change for our organization. So for example, before I joined Shootsta, I actually was a client of Shootsta. I bought Shootsta 2 years ago, and yeah, probably over 2 years ago. And the entire experience that I had with Shootsta as the client, so as a prospect to an actual client, was face-to-face. That's why I bought Shootsta. I saw them at a conference in Singapore. They came to my office. They sold to me. One of the greatest things about Shootsta was, and it still is, but it's not our core USP anymore since COVID, I'd have to say, was the camera kit.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were going to train us, upskill my team to become, you know, professional video makers. That was a really core, I guess, attractive USP that Shootsta had. Now, COVID happened in March this year, and our sales team, our trainers, even our account managers and our creative producers, everything that they did day to day completely stopped. They were not only stuck at home in their own, you know, in their bedrooms or in their lounge rooms, but they couldn't interact and communicate face to face. Especially for a salesperson, that is extremely hard when they relied, I would say 80% of their sales pitch was showing the camera kit.
Yeah.
And so as an organization, we had to not only figure out the technology that could support us, because we also work in, if you look at Singapore, for example, it geographically is a small place. So it was really easy for our sales team to go and sell face to face. Also, culturally within that market, people like to have face to face communication and a sales process. Maybe in other markets, say for the US, because geographically it's so much bigger, we didn't rely necessarily as much on that face-to-face experience, but particularly in key markets like Hong Kong and Singapore, the sales team struggled.
Yeah, I could definitely understand. I think, you know, being in Asia for 13 years, that's one thing I've noticed, that you often can't, now it's a little bit easier because people understand, but you couldn't close a deal if you didn't have a face-to-face meeting. Like, it's one of those things where it goes back to kind of building the trust and relationship. Like, you have to meet with them at least once or twice. So they see you and make sure you're real, and then, you know, they're more inclined to do it. And then I have buddies back in the States who are like, yeah, I just jump on a call and I could sell it that way. That's like, it's amazing. But then you understand, like you said, the geographic proximity as well. In Singapore, you know, the furthest you're going to travel is really an hour. But, you know, even in my home state, you travel an hour, you're still not really going to get to the next town. So it's
it's true. It's true. So I think for us, that was one of the biggest challenges, and sales sort of came to marketing of, right, how do we change this? Like, we still have the same revenue targets, and therefore marketing had the same targets. So how do we shift? How do we change? And I'm not going to lie, I think for at least 2 weeks, we were all freaking out. I think even for the account managers who were having clients contact us, they were in the exact same boat. They were like, what do we do? You know, like, we filmed all of our video in our office. with the camera kit. Even our sales team, they do personalized outreach videos, and they couldn't access the camera kit. They couldn't access the office. So how were they supposed to sell? And so as part of that shift, I think as a business, you know, we always had the plan to, accelerate and become far more of a platform-based business. But we had to accelerate it in 2 weeks. So instead of doing it in 12 months, which was our original plan, we had to do it in 2 weeks. And one way we did that was working with the tech team and the product team, as well as the production team, to accelerate new product releases. So originally we were very much around corporate videos. And within a couple of weeks, we accelerated animated explainer videos as a new solution, podcasts, and pre-produced webinars. We always had this plan. We always knew as a business we needed to start introducing those solutions. But COVID really just accelerated that. And it was also listening to the feedback from our clients who were in the exact same boat as us in March, saying, how do I create video? How do I create? I have to communicate more than ever before because of the situation that we're in as a business. You know, we cannot go quiet. We can't rely on emails because it's insincere and people are, you know, naturally freaking out, stuck at home. They're frustrated that maybe the tech that connects them with their colleagues isn't optimal. So how can I communicate? And I don't have the camera kit, and I don't have access to the office. So by listening to our customers, and that often came through the sales team who are speaking to prospects as well as our account managers, and then coming together as multiple departments to talk about, right, what do we need to do quickly? What can we achieve quickly as a business? And then go to market with that.
Yeah, no, I think it's obviously you guys had to shift kind of the business model. I'd love to find out kind of, you know, how did you guys align on the pricing? Because obviously you're having completely new offerings. How do you decide kind of to price everything out to make sure the packages are attractive to this kind of newer market?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So actually before COVID happened, we had a pricing workshop, and we were always planning to review our pricing at Shootsta this year. It was always on the cards. I think for a lot of businesses, we all had a lot of plans in January, and then they either got accelerated or they dropped off a cliff. So with our pricing, we always knew we needed to come up with a bit more of a flexible model, particularly not just to bring in new business, but also to retain clients. And then COVID happened and we introduced new solutions. So and one of the interesting things about our pricing model before was it was about consuming and creating videos per month. That was a key, you know, way we sold it and packaged it, but also the camera kit. That was, you know, a key line item in the pricing. So, and we were actually going to always keep it as a line item in the new pricing model. It was always, you know, that was a key thing that we sold. That was value as perceived by our customers. However, as soon as COVID happened, we realized, right, camera kit has changed. I guess our larger camera kit isn't as in demand as perhaps maybe a mini kit that is more flexible and you can shoot on your phone. And then we realized the same thing, that our customers who were all, you know, working from home, they had a camera sitting in their pocket, which was their mobile phone. So why would we charge for that? Or why would we make it a compulsory line item in the pricing model? So the way that we worked that out was we actually removed it from the pricing model, and it became an option. It became an add-on, as opposed to built into the overall flat fee. This is what you get.
No, I think it's smart. I've spoken with a couple of different entrepreneurs in terms of how they've shifted. I think, you know, either taking it from an annual to a monthly. I know one company has done that, we talked about. but also kind of breaking it down in like in add-ons or optional items. So for example, you have this, and I think, going back to making it more attractive is companies have, the budgets have been hit, a lot of the economies are down, adding those additional ones, say, okay, here's what you can expect in terms of the package, but if you want additional support, you can get this, 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 and this. So kind of like an a la carte menu at a kind of fancy restaurant. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was another, I guess, goal of ours for our pricing model, was so it didn't feel so restrictive. I think, we marketed ourselves as a subscription model, which we still are to this day. And I don't think we'll ever change that.
Yeah.
That is what makes us different, especially to our competitors and in the market. And it is something that Shootsta really created when they launched 5 years ago. But it did have restrictions, as in, we know that customers and enterprises don't have a consistent, output of video every month. It's really hard for most departments, whether it's your learning and development, HR, internal comms, corporate comms, B2B marketing teams, to say, right, we're going to create 6 videos every single month without fail. Some months you might only create 2 videos. Some months you might make 20. That's just the nature of business, right? Yeah. Especially when you're working with content. You could talk about even Shootsta's sales team, and we use video quite heavily throughout our entire sales process. A sales team they're not necessarily going to create X amount of videos that's static every single day, particularly if they're going after an ABM, targeted account strategy approach. It's just not realistic. So as part of the pricing model as well, it was to create a little bit more flexibility. So you didn't feel as the customer psychologically that you're getting ripped off, or that you're losing value every month, that say you didn't hit your minimum videos per month, or say you have a really busy month, that you can't just, exceed that month and hit 20 videos, because that's what your business needs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one of the things we touched on earlier is you guys obviously run ongoing kind of educational workshops. You mentioned the pricing workshop. How do you guys align on terms of those topics to make sure it's relevant to maybe a marketing and sales team?
Do you mean like as in internally as a business?
Yeah, internally as a business.
Yeah, so we actually, it was a challenge, and I'm not going to lie, I think there's still debates to this day, and I think it will always be a debate about what is the ideal pricing model. And I actually think that's a good thing. So the way that we worked it was, firstly, we surveyed our customers as a first step, because we needed some data point. We also surveyed our employees globally. But particularly in key departments that were customer facing or had to sell. So whether that's the sales team, account management team, but also, for example, product managers who understood the product and the service very well, but they also understood the needs of the market and the customer. So that was kind of like our baseline. And then from there, we were able to come up with, some research around what else is happening in the market. Not necessarily even competitors, but what are other business models out there doing right now? Because I don't think you need to just sort of look at your own sector. I think it's good to look outside and see what are other companies doing that are completely different solutions. Whether they're pure service or they're actually a hybrid, like what Shootsta is, or you're pure software. So we actually looked at all of those, and then we came up with some sort of prototype, and then we shared that internally. So back into key stakeholders, such as, the heads of each region. I think that was also key as well, because each region is slightly different. Each market, we talked about culturally, the way that you can sell in Singapore is quite different to how you could sell in the US or even Australia. So we needed to get that feedback, and we did go back and forth, and there were a lot of changes. But I'd have to say that what we kind of ended up with, say, as a prototype in February, and then, you know, you've had this massive change from a macro level just within, you know, all of your markets to where we've landed today isn't too different.
Yeah, but no, I think it makes sense that you obviously got everyone's bought in by surveying, you know, internally the teams and clients to identify that. I think too many times, you know, marketing sales teams will decide amongst themselves in a brainstorming meeting and they say, this is the plan going forward. And they try to pitch it to the other teams and then it never gets off the ground and they're wondering why. But I love the you know, approach you took and really getting everyone's kind of vote to understand kind of how it's going to impact them, getting their buy-in early, and then, you know, shaping the entire plan with them together, which I think ideally I'd like to see more organizations doing.
Yeah, and I've got to say, like, Shootsta, we're nearly 150 employees, and I'm not gonna pretend that it hasn't been easy, and that, again, we're still debating it, we're still trying to figure it out, we're still getting, you know, real life feedback from customers as well as prospects in each market. And I do feel that there is still some room for us to evolve it. And I don't think your pricing model should ever stay static and flat. But yeah, it is really important that if at each stage, whether it is changing it dramatically, changing it a little bit, or tweaking it, you do need to get that buy-in, and not just from a sales and marketing perspective. I think though the one challenge is you'll often have maybe like the sales team will be the most vocal, for example.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones who have to work with it every single day. Yeah. They're the ones who have to explain it. And if they don't understand it and they're not confident in it, that will affect the way that they're selling.
Yeah.
So there are some key teams that you really do need to get involved pretty early on. And you do have to invest time in, I guess, educating them, coaching them, but also taking on their feedback and making those tweaks.
No, absolutely. And one more thing I would love to get your thoughts on is because I was part of it, and I know it's something that happened, you know, during COVID, was the Shootsta Show. So maybe you can tell folks a little bit more about what the Shootsta Show, how it came to be, and kind of what have been some of the results from running it.
Yeah, so actually the Shootsta Show came from what we were talking about before. How did sales and marketing align? How did we react during, you know, COVID, especially in March, when the way that we had always sold and interacted with our customers had completely flipped on its head, and we had no access to that anymore. And as a video company, we're very lucky that we sit on a number of resources and talents internally. So we thought, right, people are stuck at home, but even just listening to our customers, they still needed to create video. They still needed to communicate more than ever. So how could we continue to engage them when we couldn't pull them into, you know, an event, face-to-face event, or we couldn't even getting onto individual phone calls just wasn't scalable for our team. So we actually came together, and it was one of the head of sales who had suggested, we are sitting on, you know, these amazing trainers and creative producers that work with our clients. Why don't we get them in front of a camera and teach really practical things that we teach our customers every single day? And so from there, you know, we started to pull in different departments. So we had the training team, we had the account management team, we had the client services team, marketing and sales, as well as the editors come together and brainstorm. And something that came out of it was the Shootsta Show, the concept of the Shootsta Show. Why do we call it the Shootsta Show? Well, firstly, we didn't want to be another boring webinar. Secondly, we needed, and one of our key strategies for marketing at Shootsta is we need to illustrate what we do. We want a prospect and the market to understand, what do you actually get from Shootsta if you work with us? And one way to do that is the actual output of our content. So we wanted to show the level of experience and quality that we can produce for our clients. And so therefore, we came up with this 1 hour concept where it was hosted on a webinar platform, but the look and feel was completely different. It was using our camera kits. We even had, like, for example, we have Gary in Singapore, and every single episode, even to this day, he has hosted in his own living room. So we were proving that even our own customers can still continue to create really impactful video content, whether it is, you know, an internal announcement video, or it could be, you know, a pre-produced webinar like what the Shootsta Show is, but you can do it from home. You don't have to feel like you're limited and that you have to have the big video production set with the lights and the camera and lots of people that have been working in video production for decades. You can do it, you know, even with your laptop, for example, or your mobile phone. And so it came out, and that's where, you know, you joined us for one episode, which was fantastic. And it was about pulling in thought leaders, experts to share their experience, but always the goal of each episode is to educate and inform.
No, I love it because, I mean, it's obviously very well produced, and I think it goes back to you guys' offering as well. I mean, you have to practice what you preach. Like, if you're not using your own tech, if you're not, you know, sharing some of the things that you're sharing, you know, internally, it doesn't make sense to an organization. So I love you guys have incorporated everything you guys are doing, you know, internally with clients, you know, with the tech, and it's all kind of come together in the show. And I think I still feel people, it's still one of the best produced, if not the best produced series I've been part of. So kudos to you and the team for, you know, the whole process. Being inside the machine, I know how difficult it is to run it and operate it. So yeah, kudos to you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of organization because we actually host each episode in a different market. So we hosted in Australia, then Singapore, then the US, and then the UK. So there's a lot behind it, but we're really proud of it. And we know that from a sales and marketing perspective, it's been a really powerful tool, not just for brand awareness, but also just engagement. And it's, I think, adapted to what the market needed today. Now, is that something we will do long term as hopefully different regions start to come out of, you know, circuit breakers or lockdowns? Maybe when borders start to open as well, things will change for us.
Yeah.
But I think the model is there, and I think it comes back to who we are as a company, firstly, but also what we sell to our customers. And that's how, you know, it's essentially an embodiment of what we sell.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, Lauren, like I said, there's been a lot of really good tips. I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing them all with us today.
Thank you, Joe. It's been an absolute pleasure.
The last question is, how can people get in touch with you to find out more about you and what you do?
Yeah, so please visit shootsta.com first, and you can check out the Shootsta Show as well, or look us up on all of our social media channels. So, of course, LinkedIn.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much again, Lauren. Really, really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed today's session, please feel free to share with anyone who might find it interesting. A lot of good practical tips if you're in marketing or video production. So check it out, share it, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care, everyone. Bye.